What is your definition of value? Can you quantify it? What do your products and services really cost customers? Surprisingly, few suppliers in business markets can answer those questions. Nonetheless, the ability to determine the worth of a product or service for a customer has never been more important. Customers, particularly those whose costs are driven by what they buy, are increasingly looking to purchasing as a way to increase profits and, as a result, put pressure on suppliers to lower prices. To persuade customers to consider total costs rather than just acquisition price, a supplier must first understand what its customers value and would value. Consider yourself a commercial grower for a moment. Two vendors are attempting to sell you mulch film, thin plastic sheets placed on the ground to keep moisture in, prevent weed growth, and allow melons and vegetables to be planted closer together. Trust us, our mulch film will lower your costs, says the first supplier. We'll give you more bang for your buck. We can lower the cost of your mulch film by $16.83 per acre, says the second supplier, and offers to show you how. Which proposition do you believe is more convincing? Many customers, like the commercial grower, understand their own requirements but are unsure of the value of meeting those requirements. Suppliers see this lack of understanding as an opportunity to demonstrate the value of what they offer and assist customers in making more informed purchasing decisions. In business markets, a small but growing number of suppliers use their knowledge of what customers value and would value to gain a competitive advantage over less knowledgeable competitors. These suppliers have created what are known as customer value models, which are data-driven representations of the monetary worth of what the supplier is doing or could do for its customers. Customer value models are based on cost-benefit analyses of a given market offering in a specific customer application. Depending on the circumstances, such as data availability and customer cooperation, a supplier may develop a value model for an individual customer or a market segment using data gathered from multiple customers in that segment. Customer value models are difficult to create. However, the experiences of suppliers who have successfully built and used them point to several guidelines that we believe will be useful to any company attempting to define and measure value for its customers. A common understanding of value. It is critical to have a shared understanding of what value is in business markets in order to measure it in practice. Before we get into the specifics of building value models, we should define what we mean by value. In business markets, value is the monetary value of the technical, economic, service, and social benefits received by a customer company in exchange for the price it pays for a market offering. To begin, we quantify value in monetary terms, such as dollars per unit, guilders per liter, or kroner per hour. Economists may be interested in utils, but we've never met a manager who was. Second, by benefits, we mean net benefits, which include any costs incurred by a customer in obtaining the desired benefits other than the purchase price. Third, value is what a customer receives in exchange for the money they pay. A market offering, in our opinion, has two fundamental characteristics: its value and its price. Thus, raising or lowering the price of a market offering has no effect on the value it provides to a customer. Instead, it alters the customer's incentive to buy that market offering. Finally, value considerations occur within a context. Even when no comparable market offerings exist, a competitive alternative exists. In business markets, one competitive alternative is for the customer to make the product themselves rather than purchasing it. Constructing customer value models. Field value assessments, also known as value in use or cost in use studies, are the most widely used, and, in our opinion, most accurate, method for developing customer value models. Field value assessments necessitate suppliers gathering information about their customers firsthand whenever possible. However, conducting such direct research is clearly not always an option. In cases where field value assessments are not feasible, a valuable understanding of value can be gained through methods such as direct and indirect survey questions, conjoint analysis, and focus groups, all of which rely primarily on customers' perceptions of the functionality, performance, and worth of a supplier's offering. For more information, see the sidebar, Using Customer Focus Groups to Assess Value. The procedure for developing a value model using field value assessments is described below. Value assessment through customer focus groups. Although field value assessment, gathering data firsthand whenever possible, is the most common method for developing customer value models, it is not appropriate in all situations. Indeed, in some cases, relying on customer perceptions is the only way to obtain information for a value model. Although the results of such assessments may not be as precise as those obtained from field value assessments, they can be quite effective. Consider a telecommunications company that used focus groups to better understand the value of a sophisticated intelligent network service known as single number reach. Single number reach is intended for people who want callers to be able to reach them easily even if they are not at a single location or phone number throughout the day. The service, which is provided by a central office switch, allows a caller to locate the buyer of the service by dialing a series of programmed telephone numbers. The company conducted 4 focus groups with itinerant Generation X professionals, some of whom had 6 phone numbers on their business cards, to determine the target market segment. The moderator demonstrated the service using a specially arranged prototype at the start of each focus group, and then asked participants to write down their first impressions of the service and how much they would be willing to pay for it per month. The participants then debated the service, how they would most likely use it, and so on. At the end of the roughly hour-long discussion, the moderator asked the participants to rate their interest in the service on a 10-point scale, as well as how much they were willing to pay per month. Although the company was interested in the monetary amounts provided at the start and end, it was more interested in any pattern of differences between the amounts. A concerning pattern would be steep drops from the starting amounts to the ending amounts, indicating that the participants were initially interested in the service but, after further consideration, concluded that it would not provide them with much value. A pattern with no significant difference between the starting and ending amounts would be preferable, provided the specified amounts were sufficiently large. The final pattern, significant increases from the beginning to the end amounts, would indicate that when the participants considered the service, they recognized a higher potential value. This pattern suggests that business marketing communications play a critical role in conveying the value of using the service to prospective customers. The research findings were used by the company to provide estimates of the service's worth to local telephone service providers, as well as to demonstrate an approach for segmenting the market, targeting customers, and positioning the offering. Without a doubt, the first customer value model that a supplier will create is the most difficult. Gaining a comprehensive understanding of the value of a market offering in a specific customer setting may appear to be a monumental task. But it is possible. The first step is to assemble the appropriate value research team. People with product, field engineering, and marketing experience, as well as 2 or 3 forward-thinking salespeople, should be on the team. It is critical to involve salespeople from the beginning. They understand the customer and how the offering is used. They also understand which customers may be willing to participate in value research. Salespeople who are involved in a value assessment initiative from the start are more likely to comprehend and appreciate it. As a result, they will support the approach and will be able to persuasively relate their experiences to others in the sales force. The next step is to identify the best market segment to target. Because the supplier will need to conduct value assessments with at least 2, and possibly up to a dozen customers, it's a good idea to start with a segment in which the supplier has particularly close, collaborative relationships with customers, exceptional knowledge of how customers use the offering in question, or relatively simple offerings. Before approaching a customer, the team should consider what it will require from the customer as well as what the customer will gain, and be prepared to offer an incentive. For example, the supplier may offer to provide the resources to collect the data at no cost to the customer and guarantee that all findings will be shared. The promise of shared research findings among participating customers in an aggregated or disguised manner is an irresistible incentive for most businesses because it allows them to benchmark. W. W. Grainger, a major North American distributor of maintenance, repair, and operating supplies, provided both incentives to the 15 companies that participated in its initial model building effort. Create an exhaustive list of value elements. Anything that affects the costs and benefits of the offering in the customer's business is considered a value element. These elements may be technical, economic, service, or social in nature, and their tangibility will vary. A technical element would be how well a pigment disperses in a coating. An economic element would be providing a consolidated monthly invoice rather than a separate invoice for each purchase. Design assistance would fall under the service heading, and ease of doing business with the supplier would be social. The team should consider the entire life cycle of the offering in question when creating the list, from how the customer acquires and uses it to how the customer disposes of it when it is no longer needed. The list should include all of the potential consequences of doing business with a supplier on the customer's business. It is critical to be as inclusive as possible. Leaving out elements, especially those that may make the supplier's market offering appear unfavorable in comparison to the incumbent or next best alternative offering, will undermine the project's credibility. By identifying as many elements as possible, the team will be able to more accurately assess the differences in functionality and performance provided by its offering versus the next best alternative. Broadly stated categories, such as the cost of an hour of downtime in a customer's plant, may be more easily identified. However, they frequently leave out cost elements, resulting in less accurate estimates of worth. A bottle breaking in a filling line, for example, causes downtime, but it also generates costs in scrap, discards, disposal, maintenance labor, cleaning and sanitizing chemicals, and so on, many of which are buried in various plant overhead accounts. Frequently, the value research team will have to choose between relying on a customer's perception of what all the relevant elements are and actually observing firsthand how the supplier's offering affects the customer. The customer's management may not fully comprehend all of the value elements associated with a specific offering. Alcoa Aerospace developed a program in which the company trained its salespeople in field value assessment methods and then assigned them an assignment in which they had to comprehensively chart all the steps a customer took in acquiring, converting, and disposing of an Alcoa offering. Surprisingly, the program gave salespeople a reason to approach customers, to ask for cooperation in allowing them to complete their tasks. Customers were enticed by the promise of improved knowledge of their own businesses. Alcoa's initiative was successful. The salespeople gathered at the end of a 2-month period and presented their findings to one another. The presentations provided participants with the opportunity to learn from the experiences of others and to exchange ideas about various customer situations and the potential for future sales. Customers benefited because they learned about previously unknown cost and benefit elements, which they could now incorporate into their own evaluations of supplier proposals. Collect information. With a comprehensive list of value elements in hand, the next step is to obtain preliminary estimates for each element and determine its monetary value. Suppliers may find it useful to collect data by stationing a team member in a key functional area of the customer's organization for a week or two to gain a better understanding of what is actually being done and where things can go wrong during the day. A supplier, for example, may have a team member work in the customer's receiving department. To allay the employee's fears, customer service should inform them that the person is there to assist and learn. Frequently, the customer is unaware that it possesses the data or information sought by the supplier. The customer might believe that the information does not exist. In fact, the type of data that must be gathered for the analysis may reside on 6 or 7 databases or systems in various functional areas. Frequently, the customer is unaware that it possesses the data or information sought by the supplier. Sometimes the only way to find the data is for team members to ask around until they find the person who knows where the data is. Focus groups comprised of representatives from each functional area of a company can also be an effective data collection mechanism. The ProAction Group, a Chicago-based consulting and strategy implementation firm, recently conducted 4 internal focus groups for a customer. To prepare themselves and the prospective focus group participants, ProAction consultants met with each prospective participant individually before the session, learning about the issues and gathering preliminary data. During the session, participants were asked what types of information they thought should be used in a value model and where they should look for that information within the organization. The consultants discovered data sources that neither they nor the customer's management had anticipated. The value research team must also be inventive in its search for additional sources of information. Initial estimates can be obtained from independent industry consultants or knowledgeable personnel within the supplier company. Based in San Diego, Qualcomm, a provider of satellite-based mobile communication systems for truck fleets, for example, used research studies from the American Trucking Association to provide ranges for some of the elements in the value model it developed for its OmniTrax mobile communication system. When a supplier provides a service that reduces the customer's risk, it can be beneficial to consult with actuarial consultants to estimate the cost of the potential difficulty. The team's ability to establish monetary estimates for its value elements will vary. The monetary value of social elements such as greater peace of mind, for example, is generally difficult to express. In fact, most suppliers make no attempt to assign monetary values to social factors. Instead, they set those elements aside and have a qualitative discussion with the customer after presenting quantitative results. Many intangible elements are not assigned monetary values by Qualcomm, but they are still included in its analysis as value placeholders. In this way, Qualcomm communicates to its customers that those elements are valuable and leaves the door open for a specific monetary amount to be determined in the future. Suppliers will discover that some assumptions must be made in order to complete an analysis in any field value assessment. These assumptions could be about the functionality or performance that a market offering actually provides in the customer-specific setting, especially for elements that are extremely difficult or expensive to measure. Alternatively, they could be about the monetary value of perceived or measured differences in functionality or performance that an offering provides in the context of the customer. Any assumptions made by the supplier must be stated explicitly. If the customer does not understand how or why the team assigned a certain value to an element, or if the customer is not encouraged to offer its own rationale if it disagrees with the supplier's estimates and then join the supplier in researching a mutually acceptable solution, the supplier's credibility will be harmed. Validate the model and comprehend estimate variance. Following the development of the initial value model, the supplier should validate it through additional assessments with other customers or potential customers in the market segment. Further assessments allow the supplier to refine its value estimates and better understand how the value of its market offering varies depending on the applications, capabilities, and usage of customers. Furthermore, as the supplier conducts additional value assessments, it will gain a better understanding of where it must rely on first-hand data and where it can rely on customer perceptions. When soliciting perceptions, keep in mind that people are generally better at making comparative judgments, more or less than absolute judgments. It is worth X. To put it another way, the supplier should provide an initial estimate and then ask the informants whether that element is more or less valuable to them than the estimate. More on when marketing is strategy. In addition, by conducting additional assessments, the supplier will learn how the value of its offerings varies depending on the type of customer. The supplier can then create a database containing value estimates from all participating companies, as well as individual customer characteristics, known as descriptors, that may affect those estimates. When all of the data is analyzed together, the supplier can determine which descriptors have a greater impact than others on the value customers receive from the offering under consideration. As a result, the supplier has the option of pursuing customers and prospects for whom its offering will provide superior value. Make value-added sales tools. Value models can be used by suppliers not only to inform and guide their own decision-making, but also to create persuasive sales tools. A value case history is a common sales tool. Value case histories are written accounts that document the cost savings or added value received by a customer as a result of using a supplier's market offering. Sonoco Products Company's Protective Packaging division, for example, keeps track of the savings its customers realize by implementing what it calls total packaging solutions. Sonoco offers packaging systems that it claims are stronger, lighter, and smaller than the more commonly marketed corrugated cardboard packaging materials. Savings from reduced product damage, packaging costs, shipping costs, and storage costs are thus major components of Sonoco's value model. After a year of using these solutions, Sonoco creates a case study about the cost savings and reports the findings to the customer. Sonoco keeps a file of these case studies on hand for its salespeople to refer to when making proposals to other prospects. The studies convincingly convey the cost savings that the prospects are likely to realize. Value assessment can also be offered as a service by suppliers as part of a consultative selling strategy. A supplier, for example, can create a spreadsheet software application that salespeople can use on site with a laptop computer to assess the potential value of an offering to a specific customer. See the insert, How BT Products uses value models as sales tools, for an example of how such a tool can be used. Value models as sales tools in BT Products. BT Products, a subsidiary of the Swedish-based BT Industries Group, is a global manufacturer of warehouse trucks for inventory handling. The company developed BT Compass, a logistics planning software system, in 1993 to assist its customers in increasing their profitability by lowering the total cost of the inventory handling process. The BT Compass system includes the following features: a full analysis of the customer's operational requirements, a fast comparison of different pallet handling and order picking solutions, optimum warehouse layout, accurate calculations of handling capacities, complete analysis of projected lifecycle costs. The BT Compass system supports 7 languages, and all inputs and outputs can be translated into any language with a single keystroke. It displays various layout options with high-quality color graphics, and all plans can be quickly printed with a printer or plotter. When a customer is considering a change in materials handling or adding a new facility, BT Products employs the Compass system. The system assists the customer in determining the optimal aisle width to accommodate the dimensions of a counterbalance lift truck, for example, and it calculates the layout and equipment requirements to meet peak hour needs. BT Products tests the actual performance of its competitors' equipment, frequently purchasing it to do so. As a result, it is familiar with the critical performance metrics that customers use to evaluate lift trucks. BT Products also collects information about the individual systems of its customers. Customers may provide functional specifications and request that the lift truck supplier determine the number and type of trucks required. If the performance requirements are not met, the chosen supplier must provide additional trucks at no cost to the customer. The data that the customer must enter into Compass necessitates some knowledge on their part. BT Products has created a one-page worksheet that pulls together the necessary input data to assist the customer in gathering the required data. See the worksheet, the data BT Products collects to create customer value models. Some customers are very familiar with the required information, while others are not. The most senior salespeople at BT Products collaborate with customers to conduct the analysis. They even provide hands-on data collection at the customer's location as needed. Compass has the advantage of combining warehouse planning with an analysis of the type and number of trucks required to optimize warehouse performance. Birkenstock, a German shoe manufacturer, recently decided to build a new warehouse in Asbach, Germany. An in-house consultant in charge of the procurement process for this new warehouse had proposed a layout that would necessitate the use of 3 lift trucks to handle pallet movements. BT Products used Compass to demonstrate how an alternative layout with its high-performance trucks required only 2 trucks, 1 less truck and 1 less operator. According to BT Products managers, they would not have been able to find this new solution and provide detailed performance results for their trucks without Compass. Furthermore, they believed they would have been unable to persuade Birkenstock management that their solution was correct. Putting value understanding to work. Suppliers can use their understanding of value to improve performance and gain a competitive advantage in a variety of ways. A supplier, for example, can tailor supplementary services, programs, and systems in its current market offerings and guide the development of new offerings. It can gain new customers by incorporating everything it has learned about value into its marketing efforts. Finally, by documenting its delivery of superior value over time and discovering new ways to update and reinvigorate those relationships, it can better sustain customer relationships. Market offerings must be managed. This entails creating what are known as naked solutions with options. Naked solutions are made up of only the product and service elements that are valued by all customers in a market segment. We stated that suppliers should strive to sell naked solutions at the lowest possible profit margin. Then, suppliers should wrap those solutions in option-specific product and service elements that some customers, but not all, value. The ability of a company to successfully manage flexible market offerings is dependent on its understanding of the value each component of an offering creates as well as its associated cost. Understanding how customers value those components, and how much it costs the supplier to deliver them, allows suppliers to identify and eliminate value drains. These are services that cost the supplier more than they are worth to the customers who receive them and have no strategic value. Consider the following. A manufacturer of chemicals used in oil extraction performed a field analytic monitoring service for its customers on a regular basis to determine when and in what amounts they should apply its products. A salesperson on a visit to one of the company's smaller, less sophisticated customers noticed the reports stacked in a production shed corner. When asked about their utility, the customer stated that he was not using the information and instead had the producer's truck driver pump a few gallons of the chemicals into each well whenever the truck passed by. When the supplier learned of this, he offered to discontinue the service in exchange for a 7% per gallon price reduction. The customer readily agreed, and the account's profitability increased from -6% to 32%. Rather than discovering value drains by chance, as in the example, suppliers can set out to find them by combining field value assessment with activity-based costing analysis. Identifying and eliminating value drains results in better resource allocation and increased profitability. Almost always, the results outweigh the costs of conducting the field value assessment research. Providing direction for the development of new or improved products and services. Most market research conducted to gain an understanding of a customer's needs and preferences does not answer the question, if we do X, what is it worth to that customer? Knowing that an improvement in some functionality is critical does not tell a supplier whether or not the customer is willing to pay for it. That information is provided by value models. Knowing that an improvement in some functionality is critical does not tell a supplier whether or not a customer is willing to pay for it. A value model can demonstrate to prospective customers how the technology can provide greater value for them in cases where the supplier's new offering will introduce technology into the market, for example. This is especially important when the new technology causes the market offering to be more expensive than the alternatives, which may use more established and familiar technologies. Simultaneously, a model enables the supplier to understand how the value of its new technology varies across applications, customer capabilities, and usage scenarios. When a supplier is developing a new offering in response to customer requests or demands, value assessments can be used to determine which improvements are worthwhile and which are prioritized. For example, the supplier could request that managers in various functional areas of the customer company evaluate potential improvements. One chemical pigment supplier requested that managers in its customers' production and R&D departments conduct a conjoint analysis to identify potential changes in its offering. The supplier was particularly interested in learning how the customer would value some near-term achievable changes in technical attributes, such as gloss or dispersibility. Simultaneously, the supplier requested that the customer's general managers and purchasing managers consider the potential value of changes in the commercial attributes of the products, such as the supplier's delivery service and payment terms. Although the findings mostly confirm the supplier's management expectations, one significant finding was the relatively high-value customers placed on improved dispersibility. A subsequent field investigation confirmed that the supplier's customers were experiencing significant flocking, or the clumping that can occur when a dry pigment is dispersed into a liquid solution. Increasing the number of customers. Suppliers can craft persuasive value propositions by understanding how their market offerings specifically deliver value to customers. Consider Greif Brothers Corporation, a manufacturer of fiber drums, plastic drums, and intermediate bulk containers for food and chemical manufacturers. Greif sells complete packaging systems rather than competing on price per container. That is, Greif remains involved with its customers throughout the container's life cycle, monitoring how the customer uses the container, following the container's path to the end user and retrieving it when it is empty, and disposing or reconditioning it. Greif's value proposition, total cost-based packaging, guarantees that its systems will significantly reduce a customer's total packaging costs. How does Greif come up with its ideas? To begin, a Greif strategic account manager collaborates with a customer representative to develop a value model to understand total costs. Greif based its current model on feedback from 20 major customers. The costs of tracking and retrieving the drums, cleaning and maintaining them, testing and recertifying recycled drums, and all associated paperwork are key components. Greif discovered that while customers, both existing and potential, can easily assign monetary values to some elements, others are more difficult to pin down. Greif conducts a more in-depth analysis of those elements that are more difficult to quantify. Think about the advantages of environmental stewardship. Greif determines what percentage of its customers' locations, that is, the end user's locations, are in landfill-restricted areas, where the cost of disposing of the containers is higher than in other locations, to get a handle on the value of that element. Greif's service, which includes retrieving the containers, not only eliminates this cost, but also protects its customers from fines imposed by the Environmental Protection Agency for improper disposal by end users. While these analyses do not take into account all of the reasons why environmental stewardship is valuable to a customer, such as the value added to the customer's reputation, they do make environmental stewardship valuable to the customer in monetary terms. Greif's strategic account manager and a team of Greif experts from logistics, handling systems, and computer services then give a comprehensive presentation to the prospective customer's senior managers using the value model to construct several viable total cost-based packaging solutions. During the presentation, they discuss the advantages and disadvantages of each solution. Keeping customer relationships alive. Two essential characteristics are at the heart of all successful working relationships: trust and commitment. Progressive suppliers provide evidence of their accomplishments to customers on a regular basis to demonstrate their trustworthiness and commitment to customers. Greif, for example, provides customers with quarterly reviews that detail actual cost savings. Another good example is Applied Industrial Technologies, 8, a major distributor of specialty replacement bearings, power transmission components, and fluid power products in the United States and Canada. 8 primarily serves the primary metals, mining, pulp and paper, utilities, chemical processing, textiles, food processing, and agricultural industries with maintenance, repair, and operating, MRO, supplies. It has over 337 branch locations throughout the United States. In 1990, the company began to market a value proposition that promised to help its customers improve productivity rather than simply selling them cheap parts. The company began to work with its customers through value assessment to help them save money in areas such as maintenance, inventory, and energy consumption, any measurable area other than purchasing. The results were documented as value-added savings, which are now the foundation of the company's partnering efforts. Understanding value. How W.W. Grainger benefits its customers. W.W. Grainger is a North American distributor of maintenance, repair, and operating, MRO, supplies and related information to the commercial, industrial, contractor, and institutional markets. The mission of Grainger is to provide the lowest total cost distribution for 173,000 Mauritanian Uguias supply items like clawhammers, replacement motors, safety eyewear, and lubricants. In the early 1990s, Grainger's executives realized that in order to meet their ambitious growth targets, the company needed to help its customers better understand the total cost of MRO supply acquisition and management. At the same time, an increasing number of Grainger's large customers were concerned about the money they were spending on MRO supplies that went beyond the actual purchase price. Recognizing an opportunity, Grainger's executives established Grainger Consulting Services, GCS, to assist customers in understanding the total cost of MRO supplies management. GCS began by conducting a free benchmark study for 15 of Grainger's large customers. GCS detailed the steps involved in acquiring an MRO item at each company, as well as the estimated costs associated with each step. GCS has gained extensive experience and knowledge in developing customer value models, which it refers to as total cost models, since the original studies. As its reputation grew, it began to offer consulting services to clients on a fee-for-service basis. GCS's experience with Pharma Labs, a fictitious name, exemplifies how it develops and employs customer value models. Pharma Labs is a rapidly expanding pharmaceutical company. Purchasing managers at one of the company's largest plants, a 380-person facility, were debating whether to outsource their MRO procurement and inventory management processes. The Grainger account manager learned of the manager's concerns during a routine sales call and scheduled a half-day meeting with the vice president of operations, the purchasing manager, and the maintenance manager at that facility. During the meeting, two GCS executives toured the facility to learn about its MRO supplies management processes. GCS consultants also demonstrated to pharma managers how GCS defines cost savings and outlined the sometimes hidden costs of MRO supplies management during this meeting. For example, the consultants informed the pharma executives that some companies do not account for MRO supplies inventory and associated carrying costs. Following the meeting, GCS proposed performing a baseline assessment, which documents the total costs of MRO supplies management, and then offering pharma managers some strategic recommendations on how to improve their operations. GCS estimated that the assessment and strategy development would take 6 to 12 weeks and would cost $45,000. GCS was hired in January 1997 after Pharma Labs management agreed to the proposal. To begin, GCS assembled a case team that included a consulting manager, a consultant, and a business analyst. Pharma Labs established a steering committee as well as a project team. The steering committee, which included representatives from maintenance, purchasing, manufacturing, inventory management, management information systems, and finance, was in charge of project oversight and strategy development. The project team was a smaller cross-functional group that worked with the GCS case team and had representatives from each department on the steering committee. GCS looks for customer value model elements in 4 primary areas. Processes, from how the need for items is identified to invoice payment, products, product price, usage factors, brand standardization and application, inventory, on-hand value and carrying costs, and suppliers, performance, consolidation and value-adding services provided. GCS defines value and cost-saving elements, such as freight and courier charges and the cost of overtime, in each area, specifies measures for the elements, such as procurement cost per purchase order, number of suppliers, and inventory accuracy, collects and analyzes data, and specifies performance measures. Supply expenditures, the number of suppliers, and transaction volume were among the performance indicators used at Pharma Labs. GCS uses process mapping and activity-based costing to build customer value models in a baseline assessment, drawing on proprietary databases built from previous engagement findings. GCS used an activity-based costing approach to identify procurement costs across all typical functional areas at Pharma Labs, including purchasing, maintenance, receiving, and accounts payable. These costs were generally consistent with the costs tracked in the GCS databases. GCS makes every effort to use the customer's electronic data in any analysis. The team usually tries to collect a year's worth of data. The case team pays a site visit early on to examine the customer's data and determine its accuracy and completeness. GCS examined 2 years' worth of purchasing and accounts payable data, as well as 6 months' worth of procurement card data, in the case of Pharma Labs. The data provided GCS and Pharma with insights into the possibility of consolidating the number of products purchased on a regular basis from various suppliers. It also suggested that Pharma consolidate its purchases in exchange for lower prices and more value-added services from its remaining suppliers. To validate the electronic data and provide additional line-item product detail when available, the case team at Pharma Labs, like most GCS engagements, had to conduct an invoice analysis, actually inspecting past invoices to gather usable data. Typically, the customer's level of detail is insufficient. The customer's system may only contain aggregated purchase order information, displaying only the total amount paid. To make matters worse, invoices frequently have incomplete item descriptions, making it difficult to determine exactly what was purchased. According to the GCS team's inventory analysis, Pharma Labs had no records of the amount of inventory on hand or its usage. The team later discovered that Pharma had more than $1 million in slow-moving inventory, but no actual record of this inventory was kept in a system to track and manage the items. The GCS case team supplemented its analyses with interviews with members of the Pharma project team. During these interviews, GCS shared its preliminary findings, attempted to uncover anything they may have missed, and learned what pharma executives perceived to be potential areas for improvement. The interviews were, in fact, fruitful, alerting GCS and pharma executives to at least one significant procurement finding. Pharma lab technicians turned out to play an unusually large role in the procurement process, handling some routine purchasing, keeping detailed, handwritten logs of all transactions, receiving items into inventory, and managing that inventory. According to the GCS value model, Pharma Labs was spending 30% of its procurement costs on lab technicians who could be redeployed from this purchasing function to more value-adding activities in their intended function. Pharma Labs eventually signed a supply agreement with another company, which in turn assigned one of its employees to manage the procurement process. GCS attempts to specify improvements that the customer can make in 6 to 12 months after completing a baseline assessment. It also collaborates with the customer to develop changes to the MRO supply management strategy. GCS identified at least $327,000 in total cost savings on the $6.1 million pharma was spending yearly on MRO supplies, including acquisition and management costs. These anticipated cost savings were achieved through supplier consolidation and product spending reductions, $165,000, inventory reduction, $72,000, and process improvements, $90,000. GCS, for example, suggested that Pharma Labs significantly consolidate its MRO supply purchases. In June 1997, Pharma Labs agreed to and began a national account agreement with Grainger. In exchange, Grainger provided Pharma Labs with an on-site Grainger representative to manage the company's purchasing and inventory processes. This enabled a Pharma Labs maintenance technician who had previously spent all of his time purchasing MRO supplies to return to value-added maintenance activities. What were the end results of Grainger's collaboration with Pharma Labs? GCS and Pharma Labs conducted a joint audit of achieved cost savings in December 1997, which were found to be $387,000 during the first 6 months. Furthermore, W.W. Grainger's sales to Pharma Labs increased sevenfold in 1997, from $50,000 to $350,000. Clearly, each company benefited significantly from a better understanding of value. 8 trains all of its employees, from branch managers to field associates to delivery drivers, to look for ways to improve the operations of its customers, and the company rewards them for their efforts. To assist them, the company has created a customized software program that calculates cost savings. While visiting customers, sales representatives can use laptop computers to run the program. Working with the managers of customers, representatives enter data for potential value-adding and cost-cutting variables on which 8 and the customer have previously agreed. Then, either quarterly or semi-annually, 8 provides each customer with a report that documents the savings, allowing customers to assess the value 8 has delivered firsthand. 8 requires customers to sign and return a copy of their reports in order to establish credibility. The company tracks the success of each cost-cutting initiative and totals the results. 8 estimates that it saved its customers more than $100 million in costs last year, providing extraordinary value and obtaining a fair return. Understanding value in business markets and conducting business based on value delivered allows suppliers to receive a fair return on their efforts. The essence of customer value management is to provide superior value while receiving an equitable return, both of which are dependent on value assessment. The MRO supplies distributor W.W. Grainger is an excellent example of a company that has recognized the value of measuring and monitoring value for its customers. Grainger Consulting Services was created specifically to assist customers in understanding the total cost of MRO supplies management. An observation made by a senior manager at one company that does business on value is perhaps equally compelling. Selling only on price, where's fun in that? When there is price pressure in the market, this manager recognizes that his business unit must respond by demonstrating that it has something different to offer, something that will provide superior value. Assessing and truly comprehending value in business markets is the first step toward profitable fun. Like, subscribe, get notified.